Hello, wherever you are joining us from today, we want to say a huge welcome to our global community. We hope that you're enjoying the Customer Marketing Summit. I also want to send out an extra special thank you to all our sponsors, partners, and participants who together have made this event possible. We are also delighted to welcome Crowdvocate as our headline sponsor today. Their sessions are bursting with insights to help you level up. But remember, the learning doesn't stop here. If you haven't already, you can upgrade your pass to include access to all today's sessions on demand with our Access All Areas pass. Or you can become a PMA Pro member and benefit from unlimited access to exclusive templates, frameworks, and our entire library of videos and slide decks from our events. And remember, have your questions at the ready. Simply post your question in the comments section and get awesome advice from an expert in the field. What's not to love about that? So now, on to the next talk.
Hi everyone, my name is Stephanie Menz and I'm on the customer marketing team at Toast. Today I am so excited to chat with you all about using A/B testing to help define your target audience. So here's the agenda for today's session. We're going to do a quick intro followed by defining the upsell use case and upsell funnel, and then we're going to dive into some creative testing and audience testing. Here are the top takeaways from today's session. I structured this presentation in a way as a tool that I wish I had a few years ago when I started working on customer upsell. So I hope you find it helpful. So we'll review how to create A/B tests, how to create segment-specific campaigns, how to refine target audience, how to use data to inform your upsell targeting strategy, and ways you can personalize some segment-specific campaigns. Before getting started though, I want to give a quick overview of Toast. So Toast provides a powerful all-in-one platform that's built for restaurants by restaurant people. It's better for restaurateurs, their guests, and their staff. We help restaurants do everything from running their restaurant efficiently, managing a productive team, growing their business online, attracting and retaining guests, and more. And so first, I want to talk about the upsell use case I'll be reviewing in this session. So there are different types of upsells that serve different purposes and different ways to sell these solutions into your customer base. So for example, I've laid out, new product launch, product-led growth as a channel, which makes finding add-on products discoverable within your business's product, the customer success, which is a channel that can be used for upsells that you may need to support as a customer marketer, and so many more. But today I'm really going to dive into the use case around a new product launch that is applicable to all customers and discuss how I use A/B testing to help define that target audience. So this is really going to be focused around the process from getting to, okay, we're launching a new product, to how can we refine our target audience to increase funnel acceleration and ultimately conversion. So our main goal really is to generate higher quality leads from our customer base that will have higher conversion throughout our upsell funnel. But to get started, we first need to define that upsell funnel. So here's an example of what your upsell funnel may look like. It may look different in your organization. It may look different between different add-on products you have. But it's important to go through this exercise for consensus across key stakeholders and for reporting needs, and to make sure everyone's aligned and speaking the same language. So at the top of your funnel, you have your total addressable market, which is your customer base that is fit for the product. You have your hand raisers, which could be customers that show they are interested in the product. Maybe the next stage is demo held. Maybe customers actually need a demo with their customer success manager or a sales rep before purchasing. Maybe they don't, and it goes straight from hand raisers to opportunity to win. So it may look different depending on your organization, but here's an example of what it potentially could look like. So next, I want to dive into creative testing. So now that we have defined our funnel, it's time to get started, but where? And when I went through this exercise, I wanted to start with the basics and make sure I had the positioning nailed down for this product. Then I wanted to move on to the best audience segmentation that I could evolve to. So my first step was to start testing messaging into our customer base. Using the messaging framework from product marketing, you can come up with a base email you can send into your customer base, and we can begin with testing the subject line. I like to think of refining the target audience exercise as a funnel as well. So you're going to want to start broad and refine to the point where you end up with customer personas for this solution. So getting to the persona step may take additional cross-functional collaboration with teams in your company. So for example, you may need to collaborate with your business intelligence team to do an analysis of customers attaching to the product to help understand the different attributes as to why. And we'll talk more about this later on. But right now, our step one is to start testing messaging into our customer base and A/B testing the subject line. Email is a really great channel to test messaging into, as it's very scalable and the results are usually pretty easy to digest. And so I'm starting with subject line 2 because, ultimately I want customers to open the email. I want to know how I can get them to open it. So ultimately they can take that action of buying the product and becoming a hand raiser. So when creating your subject line A/B tests, you want to make sure you have your subject line versus, a control. So for example, say I want to test personalization in the subject line, and this will be our test 1. Subject line A will have the customer's name, and subject line B will not have the customer's name, but they're still the same subject line. This way, we're able to get an easy read on which subject line is a winner. Maybe, for example, we're hosting a webinar around the product. We can start testing the example with variation A being Stephanie's Bakery, are you free next week? Versus variation B, which is hi there, are you free next week? The winning subject line in this example is variation A, and then that will become the control, the winner for variation for test 2. So for test 2, then we can do, maybe a date and time test with the personalization token. So we have variation A being Stephanie's Bakery, are you free on October 5th? Versus variation B, which is Stephanie's Bakery, are you free next week? And then from here, we can see which one's the winner and keep testing into our customer base. So here are some of my favorite subject line tests that I like to do. This is by no means an exhaustive list. There's so many different tests you can do with subject lines, but I just wanted to highlight a couple. One is personalization tokens, adding the company name or the person's name in the subject line to see if that has an increase in open rates versus when it's not there. Thinking through value propositions and testing different value propositions within the subject line, making sure that the subject line is short, actionable. Testing into seasonality. So maybe your solution helps with some customer pain points around back to school or the holidays. You could test into messaging there. Versus a generic messaging to see if one influences open rates, and then also think through date and time as well. So after doing some testing and identifying which subject line drives customers to open their email, I think it's a good opportunity to start testing which call to action drives customers to take the behavior we want them to take. So that's becoming a hand raiser, ultimately purchasing the solution. So at this point in our testing journey, we're still targeting a very broad audience with broad messaging. We're at the top of that audience funnel. Our goal is we want the customer to open the email and take action. Maybe we start testing into other channels at this point if we'd like, such as an in-product message, and you can use the winning subject line from your previous subject line test as a headline for your in-product message. So let's think through some of the different CTA tests you can try. But before we review, I'd like you to just take 30 seconds and jot down a recent CTA you clicked. This could be in an email, in product message, a paid ad, an SMS. Maybe you received a direct mailer and went to the website there or called in, any type of channel. All right, 10 more seconds. All right, so here are a couple of CTA tests that you may want to try within your organization. A couple of favorites of mine. One is personalized, so using terms like my, your. Some examples are like schedule my demo, chat with my customer success manager. Another is to create a sense of urgency from the call to action, such as apply now or like get started now. Special promotions is another CTA you can test into to see if that helps drive customer behavior. And then, outside of the copy of the CTA, you can also test into different creative treatments of the CTA within the email. So maybe having the CTA in imagery or as a button. I think every company, is different, and everyone's audience has different needs with different messaging and positioning that resonates best with them. So identifying the best CTA is great because you can then test it across different channels that you use within your company. So to recap, we now have a good sense of what subject line will drive someone to open our emails, which call to action will drive someone to click a link in our email. Now is a good opportunity to test into different messaging in our email. So here we're still at the top of the funnel with our target audience still broad, our messaging is still pretty generic, and we have the same goal of wanting the customer to open the email and take an action. So here are some examples of different messaging you can test into. Again, a couple of my favorites. One being a bulleted list of product benefits. So just a simple list explaining the product, maybe verse it in paragraph format. You can do a bullet list of the acquisition process to set expectations with the customer. Maybe you do an overview video of the product experience that includes the product benefits, and maybe you A/B test that against the bulleted list with the product benefits. Maybe there's a seasonal example as well. So for example, the holidays are coming up, Toast has a gift card module. Maybe I do some sort of holiday play there to see if I can increase attach of that gift card module to our customer base. So now that we have a good feeling about our messaging and positioning, we can move into audience testing and start digging into the data to refine our target audience. So revisiting our audience funnel, we're starting to move down the funnel where we'll be digging into our data to start to create some hypotheses around which audiences we think will convert customers. So I'd like you to take 30 seconds and think of different segments you can test into. All right, 10 seconds left. All right, so as I went through this exercise at Toast, I thought through the different attributes that I could test into. One of the things I really love about Toast is how there's data readily available for marketers to use. So to begin, I went through the current attached data set for our product to understand which segments we're converting and which regions. I was then able to collaborate with our business intelligence team, and they did an exercise that went deep into our customer data set to help me understand if additional products, time of year, and more influence customer attach for this particular product. Together, we were able to come up with hypotheses around target audiences that we could test into. And I wanted to lay out some things to think about as you go into your audience testing. So first is to dig into the data that you have readily available to you. Are you able to see if there are segments converting at a higher rate than others? Maybe you're a B2B company and you sell across verticals. So maybe you can look into the healthcare, IT, or whatnot. Are there different regions? How about time as a customer, time in business? Are customers attaching that have a positive or negative customer NPS? From looking at the data, you can then define your hypothesis. So for example, say you decide to focus on New York City, doing a regional test, and your hypothesis could be, if we send New York customers content related to a region, such as case studies, blogs, maybe something related to a big event happening in New York City that your product is a solution for, that our product will help, then we can expect a higher attach from this cohort versus the control group. And you can then test into sending New York related content to your NYC cohort, leaving a subset out as the control group. So as you go through this exercise, think of all the different tools in your toolbox you can use. Are there case studies that are relevant? How about a blog post? Is there any messaging related to the segment that you can test in the email? The list goes on and on. And so from the data analysis and from, looking at all these different attributes and segments, we were able to identify an opportunity to uncover a high intent segment for our testing needs. So the first was restaurant types. So if I actually go to Toast's website, you can see our different restaurant types here. So these were our segments, as well as different regions that we could test into. So if you're a B2B company, maybe your restaurant types look different, and that's the verticals such as healthcare or IT that you want to test into. So, okay, now that we've decided which customer segments we want to hone in on and test into, let's actually begin the testing process. What could that look like? So here's an example of an A/B testing schedule for a segment-specific campaign. We're trying to answer what's the best messaging, creative, and channel mix for the segment that will ultimately drive customers from this segment to convert. And so while we're testing, we want to hold out a randomized control group from the segment to measure the lift of the segment receiving marketing campaigns versus not, to understand conversion. So for example, maybe we have cohort A, which is the segment we're testing into, and they're getting segment specific messaging. Maybe then we have cohort B, which is the segment we're testing into that will receive general messaging. And then maybe we have cohort C, which is just a randomized group of customers that we're also going to test into with the generic messaging. And then we want to measure what attach looks like across all those cohorts to understand if our hypothesis of, if we send this segment specific content, then we will see a higher conversion rate. So in this example laid out, let's say this is our quarterly testing schedule. And for month 1, we want to test into messaging, positioning, and creative via email. After we have our messaging and positioning nailed down, we then can start testing maybe into different channels. So in month 2, maybe we test into an in-product message channel. Maybe we're hosting a webinar around the new solution. Month 3, maybe we want to start testing into a sales motion, but with a customer success team, and we're going to partner with them and enable them to help with this different sales motion. So for email messaging, we have some different A/B tests laid out here that we want to try and test into, and then move on to our different channel tests once we know which messaging and positioning really resonates with this customer base. So now if we go back to our audience test funnel, you can see that our audience test is refined, our messaging is refined, and we're continuing to move forward with our hypotheses of testing into these segments. And maybe we'll start expanding channels and doing these segmentation tests within these channels, right? As an example that I gave on the previous slide. And so as we further refine our audience tests, here are some items we can think of testing into. Most I already mentioned, we can think about different creative treatment, including segment-related photos. We can think of the different segment-related messaging, including use cases in the emails or whichever channel we're using. Maybe supporting content related to some of their segment-specific needs, so case studies, blog posts, and whatnot. As we think about regional tests, maybe there's an event that the solution helps customers with that we want to test into and see if we can use that as a regional play. Maybe we include a case study from that region and other supporting content related to that region's needs. And also, depending on how large your audience is within these two segments, maybe there's an intersection between the tests that you're doing, and you can get even more specific and continue to create hypotheses between these two high intent, high converting audiences. So as you continue to tailor your messaging, your cycle then starts again with a creative testing as well. So once you hit that persona stage, you just keep testing into which subject line will help them convert, which messaging and positioning works best for this audience, and the cycle just continues and continues, which I think is one of the really exciting things about being a marketer. Is there's so much you can test into and just get super refined within a subset of your customer base. So as a reminder, here are the top takeaways I hoped you would get from today's session. First is how to create a simple A/B test, as we reviewed throughout this presentation. How to create segment-specific campaigns, thinking through that different email tests of the messaging and positioning, and starting to test into different channels, seeing which channel customers attach better to. how to refine your target audience by looking into the data, thinking through, which segments, which reasons, which attributes within my company's data set can help show like which customers are more likely to attach, so that we can start creating hypotheses and using these hypotheses and data to help inform our upsell targeting strategy. And then also thinking about how can you use different content within some of these segment related tests to help increase attach from this customer base. And so, I think one of the biggest things I learned from standing up a new funnel is, not to over engineer the marketing. A/B tests are a simple and a really great tool to help refine your messaging and positioning, and a great tool to help define your target audience. So I hope you found this framework helpful. Like I mentioned, this is a tool that I wish I had when I first started upsell testing a few weeks back. And thank you everyone for joining.